Okay, so some real talk today. I need to tell you something that might piss you off at first, but stick with it because this is probably going to be one of the most important things you hear today, if not the most important thing. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I'm not giving you a bunch of BS. Like, I know, trust me, I know if you're struggling, you're watching everyone else retire from the online space. And then if your sales are down or you've just lost your job, your ADHD brain is telling you you're the problem. But that's like the last thing you want to hear right now because you might be spiraling. But here's the second part. Just because you're exactly where you're supposed to be doesn't mean that you're supposed to stay there. So I want to kind of talk about a personal story from 2008. I was a former Army combat medic veteran who had ADHD all through the military, didn't know because I wasn't diagnosed until later. I've run a luxury cake design business for 18 years. I'm also a licensed realtor. So I've had multiple business ventures in my life. And I want to tell you about the time I almost quit though. So I used to be in professional sales before all this. I worked for US Cellular. It was probably my favorite sales job because I had started in customer service, kept getting promoted, did amazing in sales, and then moved out to Savannah, Georgia when I got married, or back to Savannah because I had been stationed there in the military, which is where I met my husband before like 2001. And then we ended up moving back in 2005 and we got married there and everything like that. But it was 2008. I had literally just had my last child a month previous to that. And the economy collapsed because of the economy tanked, right? At the time I was working for a large pharmaceutical company. It was a great job, but it was 100% commission. And my sales literally got cut in half overnight. Like overnight, everything was just cut in half. And I was basically the breadwinner at the time. I had 2 babies at home because my son and my younger son and daughter are only 14 months apart. And I spiraled. I completely spiraled. Yes, my husband was supporting us, but he just wasn't making as much as I was making. And at the time I had been taking cake design classes and I had become very obsessed with cake. And I think at that point I had become an instructor. Even like in over the previous year, like a Wilton instructor. I took the Wilton classes and things like that. But my executive function at the time made it hard to do anything. I mean, I was so fearful. I felt like, oh my God, like what is happening, right? And then, so I took this sugar flour class. It was a sugar gum paste immersion class, master class by Minette Rushing. It was actually the first class she ever offered, and she was the woman who made my cake in 2005 for my wedding, and was my first and favorite cake mentor of all time. She was a master sugar artist. She just passed away this last year on December 27th. Very sad, very untimely death. She was only 70, and she had classes booked for this year, and it was really sad, and it was just from a cold or something that just took her immune system out. But in the beginning of cakes, even though I trained underneath her and the best, I mean, I spent tons of money on classes, from Nicholas Lodge and Ron Ben. I took a class that was like a sub class from Ron Ben Israel, and then I think Elisa Strauss and Colette Peters. These are all big names in cake at the time. Still, some of them still are. But the point is, I still had all this imposter syndrome because, I just felt like I still didn't know what I was doing. And I wasn't. I was brand new, but I was pushed out, right? And I was almost like, well, I'm an imposter, but I just got lucky, and now my luck is already running out. But this is also, I also had a lot of doubt because I'm like, the economy is tanking. Who's going to want to spend money on cake? But I noticed something, while some bakeries were closing, a few, like Minette's location, was absolutely thriving. Same economy, same market, different outcomes, right? So the difference wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It was identity. and skill too. The ones who survived and grew assumed they belonged in the space. They assumed they'd figure it out. They assumed the economy would also recover, and it did. They didn't wait for permission or for conditions to be perfect. And so that's exactly what's happening right now in the digital space. So like if you're trying to launch an online business, or, we've got everybody talking about how, digital products are dead. Courses don't sell anymore. AI is taking all the jobs. The economy is completely uncertain. And I'm watching creators I respect and admire retire from the space because their sales are down. And look, I get it. The attention economy is brutal right now. AI is changing freaking everything. And I'll be honest, I don't like the whole clone yourself with AI. I try to do that. And I mean, I'm not even that big of a person on here, but I just cannot stand it. You can just tell when someone's not real, and there's real uncertainty right now. But here's something I can tell you about from my army days, when everything's chaotic and scary, some people freeze and other people move. And, we were trained that you had to move because you may not have time to freeze because you might get gunned down in the field, by the enemy. So it is not because they are braver or we were braver. It's just because we've been trained differently. You know what I'm saying? So our brains were trained differently in that aspect, right? So when everything's chaotic and scary, this is the time to actually face the fear and do it anyway. Okay? And that's really, honestly, it's like a 5-second rule. You just count down and you just do whatever it is, because the fear is never really going to the fear sometimes is not going to necessarily go away. You just get better at ignoring it, to be honest with you. That's what I've noticed. But let me tell you, from being in business for over 18 years in, two different industries, and every single recession, every market disruption, the sky is falling moment creates two groups: the people who get out and the people who become wildly successful. The Great Depression created more millionaires than any previous decade. The 2008 recession launched Airbnb, Uber, Instagram. The pandemic created an entire new class of online entrepreneurs. So same chaos, different assumptions about who they were in that chaos. One of my mentors actually made her first $1 million in 2020. Yeah. Because, courses were selling, and no, they aren't selling like they were. I understand that, but I'm just saying it definitely, there's still a market, but you have to utilize AI correctly, and you've got to be really good at your skill, at your craft. Okay. I'm just straight up. Right. So if you have ADHD like me, your brain's probably screaming, yeah, but I'm different. I'm the exception. I'm actually the imposter. I really am an imposter. But I'm going to get kind of geeky neuroscience for a second. You have this thing in your brain called the reticular activating system, RAS. And it's basically a filter that decides what information gets through and what doesn't to your conscious awareness. Okay. So the wild part is it filters based on what you've told it is important and true about you. This is the law of assumption, but it's not woo-woo, even though I'm very woo-woo at times. I do believe in the law of attraction, assumption, all the 12 laws of the universe, but this is actual brain science though. So like the brain science backs up, the whole law of assumption. It's if you assume you're an imposter, then your RAS will find every piece of evidence to confirm that. So someone unfollows you, evidence. A launch flops, evidence. You see someone succeeding, evidence that you don't belong. But if you assume you're an entrepreneur and a business owner who belongs here, who figures shit out, your RAS has evidence for that, right? Instead. Same reality, just a different filter. So your ADHD brain makes this more intense because we have rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Our brains literally are wired to look for threats and basically threats to belong. Like the negative, we always catastrophized. I can't pronounce the word. Catastrophize before we're never positive first. Like naturally, we have to rewire our brains for that. So when you are dealing with the imposter syndrome, your ADHD is like, oh, well, I want evidence that you don't belong. But, you know, which library you're going to have? Are you going to have the library that you do belong of evidence? Or are you going to have the library that you don't belong? Because it's filing all these thoughts and beliefs. Like the thought, you can take it and it becomes a belief if you take it in and put it in that library. So you need to be putting the thoughts, the evidence that, hey, you know, I went through that thing, but I came out on the other side. And now I have evidence that I can do this shit, you know? And so you just build that library of evidence over time. Here's the beautiful part though. The same ADHD brain can hyperfocus like a laser beam on an opportunity when it's pointed in the right direction and you're truly interested in that thing. So here's what I need you to understand. You're being exactly where you are right now. That's not a judgment. That's just coordinates on a map. I believe in God's source universe. I believe that we're all exactly where we're supposed to be. I do. I believe God is willing and working all things to the counsel per the scriptures of his own will, declaring the end from the beginning. But that doesn't mean that for example, if you were given a thought or a desire, then like you wouldn't be given that desire if you were never supposed to go after it, in my opinion. So you can still manifest and believe in the laws of the universe and also believe in a sovereign creator. Okay. And maybe some people don't believe that, but I do, you know. I believe we're playing out this play and but we have our part in it and we need to play it out. We need to, even if it's already been written, you know. But that's the fun of it. We're not supposed to live in the absolute. We live in the relative, and that's important. But maybe you're here, maybe you're there because circumstances outside your control, right? Maybe you're there because decisions you made, you know, maybe it is your ADHD. Maybe it's the economy. Maybe it's AI. Maybe it's all of the above, right? But it doesn't freaking matter. It doesn't matter, because what matters is, do you assume you're an entrepreneur? Do you assume you're a business owner or a professional who belongs in the space you're in? Or do you assume you're an imposter who got lucky? I'm telling you right now, the market doesn't give a damn about your imposter syndrome. Your clients don't need you to be perfect. They need you to belong in that arena, okay, that you're in. So when I decided I belonged in the luxury cake space, everything freaking changed. And I mean everything. Like, I did have imposter syndrome for a long time, even though you can look at my work. I'm a master at my craft. I don't have a problem saying that now. But I always was like, well, I'm not as good as so-and-so. I'm not as good as so-and-so. And it's crazy when, I don't know what it was, honestly. I don't know exactly what changed. I think when I won, so, excuse me. I started to build belief, and I started to build that library of belief. And so because of that, my RAS started filtering for opportunities instead of threats, I believe. And then I went on to win the Food Network Challenge on the first try. And I've heard from so many people on the Food Network Challenge that never happens. That never happens. I was actually told that when we were going to go on the show, that you never win on the first try. So just go to learn. Just go to learn and get experience, and then go back to win. I won on the first try. That built such a belief in me. That changed everything. When I decided I belonged as a coach, even though I'm just a baker with ADHD, or, cake designer with ADHD, my brain started showing me all the ways my weird background was actually my superpower to help people, to launch their businesses, whether, it doesn't matter if they're a baker or a cake designer. They could be doing anything, but it's a framework, right? So you don't have to listen to all the negativity about what's not working anymore. Yes, some things have changed, and it's going to continue to change. You're going to have to just accept that. But attention is also going to get harder to get from. That's why you have to up your game. You have to be the best. This year, my focus is actually becoming a better speaker. I talked to an old friend of mine, and he does consulting and stuff. And he told me, you have a good voice. I want to work on my game though. I want to work on becoming a better speaker, a more confident speaker. And so that's kind of one of my goals this year, is to look back on these videos from the beginning of the year, because I want to be consistent this year. And I want to just see how much better I've gotten at the end of the year. So that's one of my personal goals, but yes, is AI disrupting everything? 100%. But what is working now, right? People who assume they belong, people who go into that room and change the energy of that room by their presence, whether it's online or in person. And I actually really like in person a lot better. I'm going to a in-person mastermind next week, and I'm super excited to get in the room with these other successful women that have done the thing and continue to do the thing. And I just think it refines you. When you get in a room with people that you're trying to aspire to, it just pushes you out to that next level, because what does it say? We are the sum of the 5 people we surround ourselves with, and I definitely want to level up out of that. So, people who use their ADHD creativity to find new angles are the people that are going to win. People who stop waiting for permission are going to win. You cannot wait for permission anymore. Okay. That just ends today. So here's your homework, and I'm dead serious about this. So over the next 7 days, I want you to practice assuming you belong, not fake it till you make it. That's exhausting. It does not work. Genuinely assume that you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, period. Not an aspiring one, not a wannabe, like an actual entrepreneur who's challenging the status quo. Okay. And when imposter syndrome shows up, and it will, especially with ADHD, I want you to say out loud, that's an interesting thought, but I'm an entrepreneur who figures shit out. I'm a business owner who will figure the thing out, and I will solve a specific big problem. So watch what your RAS is showing you, okay? Watch how the opportunity you couldn't see before suddenly became visible. So, with all that said, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You're just not supposed to stay there. You've survived 100% of your worst days so far. Your ADHD brain got you this far. It'll get you further when you point it at the belonging instead of the imposter syndrome. So the market's shifting. Let the people assume they don't belong, retire out, It's just going to happen. But you, my friend, are just getting started. I am just getting started. Let me tell you, I won't say the name, but there's a cake designer that left Colorado completely. And this was not planned. I happened to pick up the phone and call this wedding studio that I wanted to join like years ago. And I'm like, I'm doing this year. I'm building my physical cake business. I want high-end luxury clients this year. That's it. I also want to go back on some competitions. We'll see what happens with that, if they have any this year. But she left. She's leaving Colorado completely. I think moving to like California and leaving the cake industry. And she was a master like at her craft also. And I just felt it in my spirit. I was like, this is my year. This is my year to reinvent the wheel and to scale my business for that, because with the cakes, I only do cakes that are a certain dollar amount or more. I only do really wedding cakes nowadays. So my point is, if this resonated with you today and you're not an ADHD entrepreneur who's tired of the imposter syndrome bullshit and ready to assume your place in the room, let me know in the comments. And tell me, I'm sorry, my throat today is like, tell me one thing you're going to assume about yourself this week. Okay? this isn't about fake it till you make it. It's about literally creating your reality by your spoken words and even writing it out. So I was going to say journaling is really important too. I've really loved journaling now, and it has helped me tremendously. So if you guys want real talk about building a real business with ADHD, I'm going to be releasing my 90-day business blueprint soon on how to launch in 90 days any business model. So whether it's online or it's brick and mortar with ADHD. Okay, and some of those businesses might take a little bit longer to launch, especially if they're brick and mortar, but it's going to give you the framework that I used, but it's also going to include a lot of, things that people aren't talking about with the emotional regulation, the healing code, getting your space in order in the right way for your brain to get ready to launch, because all this stuff works either with you or against you. Okay. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be filming probably over the next couple weeks. And then I want to get that out I'm going to have a goal of about February 15th at the latest. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and thanks for watching.